call to order the meeting of the Vallecitos Board of Directors for Wednesday, October 2nd at 5 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd all join us, please. Mr. Hernandez, Director Hernandez, would you please lead us?
Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And electronic roll call, please, gentlemen.
Mine's not up on the screen.
Yeah, nobody says yet.
I'm here.
Can you prove that?
He's trying.
He's trying to.
Still? I think it has to come up.
We can do it the old fashion. We can do it the old
Want to
fashion.
do a roll
Go
call?
up there. Yeah, no, so we have four board members in and one board member
Director Evans.
absent. Correct. Director.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Very good.
Okay, we're going to adopt the agenda for the board meeting. Need a motion?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Consent calendar. All items are approved as one
Excuse me,
motion.
public comments? You jumped over public comments.
I have no public comment.
Oh, you have none? Oh.
Yeah. But thank you for keeping me
I'm
abreast.
watching here for you.
No, seeing no public comments. Consent calendar. All items will be approved as one motion. Looking for a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, moving on to action items. Action item number 2.1 is looking at adopting the ordinance water and wastewater cap fees. I'm going to turn this over to Joe Manager Broom, or
Yeah, it'll be, I'll just introduce District Engineer Gumpel and Finance Manager Owen. They're going to be presenting the relatively brief report, but this is the culmination of a lot of work in developing the cap fee. So, important step tonight. James?
Well, thank you.
Is it not on that second?
Yeah, it's up. Let's start this. Thank you, President Martin, members of the board. So this is basically capital fee adoption, a quick presentation for today. So if you may recall, we basically have a current fee, and our current water fee is $7,756. The current sewer fee is just under $10,000. Total fee is around $17,700. We had a board meeting back on August 2nd where we brought this to the board, and we heard comments both from the public and from different developers and the BIA. We went ahead back on a workshop on August 29th where we heard some more comments, kind of worked through some of the process and procedures. Staff took into account what we received both in writing and from the meetings, both from the August 2nd and the August 29th board meeting and the workshop respectively. And we went through, and essentially, very simply, what we did was we basically used phases 1 through 4, which is the 20-year sandbag. Water always was over 20 years. The sewer fee, we had certain projects that extended beyond that 20-year time frame, and we went ahead and just looked at the 20-year time frame. So we looked at a 20-year time frame of EDUs and what projects would need to be built to accommodate those EDUs. And then the only other thing that was brought up that we looked at really hard was within our master plan, there was existing deficiencies. In other words, there were, whether it was a water tank or a pipeline that was already impacted and would require to be upsized without any growth. So we identified those and we backed that out of the fee because new growth didn't cause that. That's existing ratepayers that are in the system. Basically, even without any growth, those pipes would still need some sort of upsizing. So those are basically the two things. So that's the second bullet, the existing deficiencies. We ended up backing that up. When we looked at that, we basically simply looked at that 20-year time frame. We didn't make projects smaller. We didn't get rid of projects. we came up with some new numbers, and they're all broken up, but just basically what ended up happening is we ended up going with an increased fee of about $140 to just under $7,900 for water, and the sewer fee went from just under $10,000 to just under $13,000 at $12,986. So our total combined fee for a single EDU, as an example, went from about $17,700 to $20,882. You can see kind of the different assumptions here on the interest rates that was put in and how we compare. So what you see here is on the water side, you have the existing fee and now the new fee. So in position, we basically stayed the same, and our fee went up slightly. And on the sewer side, you can see the different agencies that we compared to, and our sewer fee went up about $3,000. And when we look at the combined fee of where we were, we're about $18 or so, a little under $20 higher than City of Oceanside did. So as a comparison. So with that, staff was here to answer any questions, and also staff recommends obviously adoption of the fee. We put in a recommendation of a 60-day implementation period, but the board has the ability to implement the fee immediately or at some other date. And with that also, there's a CEQA action of, I'm sorry, is it a?
Notice of decision.
Thank you. What is it?
Notice of decision.
Notice of decision. So today what we're asking for the board is adoption of the fee, and there's an ordinance along with that, so that'd be a roll call, I believe.
Yes.
And also the notice of decision, and also the staff looking for final guidance or final recommendation on the implementation period.
And if I can add one thing, so if the board were to select an implementation date that's prior to the end of the calendar year, that fee that's in place would be subject to an ENR adjustment on January 1. So just so the board knows, if the board were to select a date after January 1 or January 1 or beyond, it wouldn't be subjected to any adjustments. Just so we're clear.
Questions of staff, anyone? You have a few speakers.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Few speakers. First one is Michael Hunsaker.
Michael Hunsaker, President, Valley Property Owners Association. The citizens and existing ratepayers have been paying heavily for facilities that are in advance of need. And of course, they have to pay interest on all this, facilities that have built ahead of need. The thrust of this series of adjustments is that we're looking forward pretty much only. There hasn't been a real good explanation as to how the quote shortfall or deficit, whatever words you want to use, is calculated. As such, the needed data and analysis and nexus is not present. And nexus not only applies to developers not overpaying, but also to ratepayers not overpaying. I looked at a 2007 finance CIPs, and there was something like $40 million for new development. And of course, we haven't had all that much development over the years. So how is this $40 million going to be adjusted? It's being paid for in existing bonds now. This does not really properly supported, grounded in reality. I'd also like to know what in the world the interest rate's going to be. There was some discussion considerably in the meetings on interest rates, and there is a statement that you have settled on something. Well, what exactly have you settled? Lastly, there's a question of how much new development is going in. There's three massive ones being considered. Newland, of course. Creekside is finally getting pushed heavily. And University District North City is ongoing. The SANDAG projections have been universally shortfall. As a consequence, the growth requirements have not been adequately met. So what happens if Newland, University, and Creekside all come in, and you're all of a sudden very close to the 2040 ultimate build-out? This looks like a chance for new development to game the system that's being put in place. And I think these factors need to be properly addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. James, you want to make some of those answers for, I know they're here in front of us, but
Yeah.
I can tell you right off the bat, the financing number is up there on the board, 4.5%.
And
Phase
6.5.
1, 6.5%, phases 2 to 4. But that can change as necessary one way or the other on a yearly or semi-annual basis. But go ahead, James, on his other.
Thank you, President Martin. So one of the things is the shortfall is actually outlined fairly clearly within the study itself. And basically the shortfall now in this recommended or proposed fee is going to be paid with interest paid off at 2035. So it's basically a 20-year period from 2015. So at 2035 it'll be paid off.
Paid for by the developers,
Yeah.
not by the ratepayers.
Yep. The 40 million in CIP that is referred to is back for basically the Twin Oaks, the 40 million gallon tank, and Metal Arc treatment plant. The debt proceeds of that are actually shown right on this table on the sewer debt water debt service, and that's how it's going to be paid over this period of time. And the sewer debt, part of it, the other portion of this sewer debt is obviously Encina Phase 5 improvements. Those are the two items in sewer debt, both the Metal Arc expansion and the EWA Phase 5. And that's how we're collecting for it within this same phasing period, which also matches up with the actual amount of time that we have to pay the debt also. And let's see. So with the different projects, all the projects mentioned, with the exception of Newland and Sierra, are already considered in the master plan, and the infrastructure required for them are already considered in the master plan. So the only project, if it were to come in that is not part of this existing and adopted master plan, is the Newland and Sierra project. We actually do a separate water and sewer study for every project that comes in, and what that does is some agencies call it a SAMP, a sub-area master plan. Cities have their SBAs, and what this water and sewer study does is it basically makes the project whole with our master plan. We have assumptions in our master plan. They come in with a different project. We look at what they're actually doing and say, this is how you affect our infrastructure, both on-site and off-site. And that's the basis of how we condition a project. So if they meet those conditions, they essentially make themselves whole with the master plan. So we have safeties in place to ensure that a large development that was used as an example that's not already in the master plan, if they were to come in, our ratepayers aren't being negatively impacted by them.
Thank you. Next speaker, Michael McSweeney.
Good evening. I'm Michael McSweeney. I'm the Senior Public Policy Advisor for the Building Industry Association. I'd like to start off by thanking the board and the general manager and staff for working with us. I know at times it's been somewhat semi-contentious, but it's a complete departure from how things were done in the past, and we appreciate the openness and transparency. As James alluded to you, the way they went back and looked at things in that 20-year time frame matches up. So I'm here tonight to support staff's recommendation to you. I had one question, though, regarding the implementation. We had asked that any new fees go into effect at the first of the year. I think James could give you an idea of what the EN&R increase would be at the first of the year, but if you're going to do a $3,163 increase now, if 4% would be a reasonable EN&R adjustment? All right, so if it was 4%, that would add another $835 to the fee. So, we would prefer that anybody that's got a project in the pipeline have enough time to be able to pay their fees ahead of time. Otherwise, if you, put off doing the next E&R adjustment, I know that there's a couple people that have projects that'll come on right after the first of the year. But again, it's nice when, I've got to, be the person that interacts with an agency, and we can have an open dialogue, even when we disagree. It's never disagreeable. I wish I had the same type of treatment that I don't get from the local school district. They are not transparent, they are not open, and they don't work well with others. But I do appreciate the way you've changed things here so that it is nice enough to work with you and have that dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Simmons, Jim Simmons, is our last speaker. You're the last speaker, so you can take your time.
I'm always the last speaker.
As long as it's under 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Take all three.
It'll be under 30 seconds. Again, I want to repeat what Mike said. From my client's perspective, several of them worked really hard through this process to try to get something that made sense to them, and I think we arrived at a reasonable number. I appreciate the staff's cooperation, and I repeat that, we don't get this kind of cooperation in a lot of agencies, so it's very helpful to have that. It would be, for one of my projects, Highlands, it would be almost impossible for us to make our process happen by December 2nd. So we would really request that it be extended to January 2nd. We can make that happen, and we'd appreciate if the board make that change in the ordinance and implement it on January 2nd. It would be very helpful. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, directors, questions, comments?
Okay, I'll take this out.
Director Snella?
Maybe. Am I on?
Yeah, lower rate.
Oh, there we go.
I'm there for it.
We're all still learning, Diane. I just first off want to thank everybody involved in this process, from the public who's participated, staff, and the development community. It's always good when we can take our time and kind of hash things out and make sure that we get the answer right. And so I think we have. And just one board member, I think anytime we're looking at an 18% increase in anything, a reasonable implementation runway is reasonable. So 90 days seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Okay, Director Hernandez.
I too am just grateful and pleased that the system works, where in the past it didn't seem to work. The cooperation with staff, management, and the BIA and developers took a little bit of back and forth, as usually things do, but I think we've all arrived at a solution that we agreed to, and it was with the cooperation of everyone. And so I want to thank everyone for making this an easy decision for me. And likewise, I would echo moving the implementation to January 2nd date.
I would just like to say, thank everyone concerned, including those that are not here today, which are really the people that were opposed. They're not here today because our staff, and I congratulate our board on this, having an excellent GM, an excellent staff, is open, transparent to everyone, no matter what questions you have or asked. And I know we received a letter today that staff is going to reach out and still converse and give them the answers. Some people don't like the answers, so they keep asking the same question. But the answers are the answers, and I want to thank our staff for all their hard work in what's been a very interesting process this time. And I want to thank the BIA for bringing up a lot of the questions they brought up, which really helped it all gel together. So with that, I'll make the motion that we approve the new rates 90 days from today. That brings us January 2nd. And that's my motion.
Second?
Okay, we need a roll call vote.
This will be a vote.
With a vote of 4 and 1 absent, it carries. Thank you very much for all concerned. Very excellent job by everyone. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on, so if you need to move on, you certainly can. Thank you. All right, moving on. Item 2.2, James, it's you again.
Yeah, thank you, President Martin, members of the board. This item starts on page 42 of your board packet. On August 10th, staff responded to a water main break at the intersection of Campus Way and Barton Drive. Once they discovered the break, they discovered it was about 14 feet deep. Our standard equipment basically goes about 12 foot deep in the ideal conditions. So the Cass Arietta was called out again under the emergency provisions for the break to go ahead and work on it. What Cass Arietta performed was basically excavation down to 14 feet down. They discovered a failed restraining joint. So this is basically a joint here that the bedding, the material underneath it, the supporting basically pipe bedding, gave way or was never properly compacted at the time. And part of it was in a wet area and it was very deep. And it gave way and it put additional pressure on the pipe. And it's hard to see here, but the bolts were actually stretched into the actual pipe itself. So the bottom of it was exposed essentially. Obviously, they removed it, they did a proper repair, and then of course there was some asphalt damage and repair. If you go on to page 43 with the fiscal impact, you can see there was a $51,000, almost $52,000 bill in Cass Area. We had some geotech services to ensure that proper compaction was done and tested. And also, this is when we put back a road, we have to do geotech investigation to ensure the city that we would get proper compaction back. So that's the Christian Wheeler. Ortiz Construction actually was on site, and they actually helped contain, they actually stopped what they were doing and helped contain some of the spill to help limit the damage. And they helped us out, so we got a bill from them, and that was actually already paid through our normal purchasing policy. And then, of course, we had our own labor and staff and equipment. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and staff recommends approval of payment to Cass Area Construction in $51,680. And again, as a reminder, since this is over $50,000, besides just informing the board, it requires board action to make this payment.
No, but if there's no
I
discussion.
have a quick question. This pipe is in the middle of a very heavily, a new building being built, which isn't shown here, but a lot of work has been going on in that street. None of it's caused by anybody else doing work on that street?
It possibly could be. This actually was a section where the developer put in a pipe temporarily, a new pipe, removed the pipe, connected to an old pipe, put in a new pipe, and then removed that pipe and connected. So this pipe was touched 3 times over the period of the last 5 years or 6 years or so. But there's no way for us to go back and prove that the bedding was improperly done. We have no records of it. The first thing we went through is looked at our inspection records to see if we saw something there. And we don't know when or if the installation was incorrect. It was hard to tell. All we know is either there's a lot of water erosion because there's a lot of underground structures in this area because they put what they call hydro mods. So basically there's a lot of areas where they have to collect water, and a lot of that water travels in our pipe trenches, unfortunately. So to answer, the simple answer to your question is we don't actually know if there's a fault of the original install. It appears that the subsurface or the bedding gave away, which then allowed the pipe to fall down.
Mr. President.
But, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hernandez.
Do we get a certificate of compaction report on the beddings? We do. So, I mean, in the projects I've been involved in, we've always had that happen. And when you, geotech guy says it's 95%, it's 95%. So this, in this case with the water and that, perhaps something else happened.
And there's no, you know, we don't test every inch of the trench, so it's spot tested throughout.
And it's not something that our inspectors should catch.
Well, if there's a good chance our inspectors were not there when this was put in also, because our inspectors don't sit out there for the full 8 hours a job. They have several jobs and they spot check the jobs and they see the important connections or anything important. So this was done after the connection at the first bed.
Thank you. Director Snella, you wanted to
Yeah, I'll just move to approve as presented by staff.
move?
I'll second it.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 100%. 2.3, approval of surplus property items for public auction.
Are we selling the Jeep?
The Jeep is not on the list. No.
Oh,
It's costing us $50 to have them pick it up and get rid of it for us.
So we've recently replaced several vehicles, and the old vehicles are going to be surplused, and it does require board action. And Wes, I don't know if you had a presentation.
Yeah, just I don't have a presentation, just a short summary of the staff report. Resolution 1312 authorizes staff to dispose of surplus property items through a publicly noticed sale, and items that are greater than $1,000 in value are supposed to be approved by the board per that resolution. Staff has identified 5 vehicles that are no longer required for district operation and have a value greater than $1,000. So with that, the listed vehicles here, staff is recommending approval of those items to be listed on a public surplus auction.
What page is that on?
46.
and while you're looking, Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead.
do we hold the auction or do we just move the?
We actually do it through an online auction service. I
Oh.
forgot the name of the service, but we use the same one every time.
Okay.
It's like governmentsurplusauctions.com or something like that. It's a
Really?
You see somebody like him?
What, no, I'm just saying, a 2010 Ford F-150, $1,000, has been dropped off a cliff? It's only a 9-year-old vehicle.
So these vehicles, based on their mileage and condition, we looked at the Kelly Blue Book value of them and the trade-in value, and that's where this value was obtained from. So that vehicle, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming maybe it has high mileage or, yeah.
Probably says Vallecitos on it too.
Can we buy it before it goes to auction? Do we have to ask
Actually-
around?
Resolution 1312 does not allow board members or staff to purchase items from the
Pre-purchase.
surplus.
We have to go online.
You have to go online.
Like the rest of the,
But
good for that.
I'm just looking at the estimated value, that 2010 pickup truck.
It seems like it may have a higher value.
Yeah, we don't have that many, we had one ready truck driving around that I saw, but we got rid of that one. We don't have that many ready trucks. It's only worth $1,000.
High mileage and the training's gone up twice on that.
High mileage, like 200,000, 300,000?
No, it's over 100,000, not quite 200, but it's enough to where it's no longer valid to keep repairing.
I agree.
And if I may ask you, the 2006 International, it's a big truck.
Yes.
10 grand?
Man, it's a big utility vehicle.
And the Jeep?
Priceless.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, these are going to auction. The marketplace will tell us what it's worth. We may get considerably more, we may get less than this. These are just estimated values to see if it exceeded the threshold of the policy.
And typically what we'll do is we'll set our reserve at this estimated value here. We may or may not get more than that value.
Great, thank you. Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Need a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Reports. General manager report.
Yeah, so I have 3 items. The first is just an announcement that our Water Academy is next Thursday, October 10th. Starts at 8:30 in the morning. I think it goes to 4:30. There'll be presentations, there's a lunch, there's a little tour of the facility, and then we get in the bus and do a bus tour. Right now, we have about 35, 36 people. We're hoping more will sign up, but board members are certainly encouraged and invited to attend. Anybody, we're still taking interested parties if they want to reserve. They can just, anybody interested can go to vwd.org, and on there, there's a place to sign up for this Water Academy. Second item, the district will be performing some work tonight. This is something that's kind of evolved just today. There was a fire hydrant hit on San Marcos Boulevard right at Grand, and in shutting it off, the fire department responded. They shut off the fire hydrant valve, and it seems to have created a pressure surge that created a water main break that took several restaurants on the south side of San Marcos Boulevard, east of Grand, out of service. So we're out there trying to fix that water main repair to get those businesses back in business.
I have a question on that, and my question is, obviously firefighters need to get the water turned off. If they're there and they get it turned off as quickly as they can, and that's public safety. Are we notified? Did we send somebody? How long did it take? Who got sent? I'd like to know what our inner workings were.
Yeah, so
The fire
Ed
department
can help us
shut it
with
off
that.
before we did.
So oftentimes, we get notification through the public. Someone's driving by and they see an accident happen, and they don't always call their water district. They call the fire department, they call the police department, they call the dispatch. So oftentimes, the emergency services people are routed before we get a call. So it's not uncommon that they would beat us to the site, but I'll turn it over to Ed because he knows more about the details.
Yeah, fire hydrant hits they're typically a 911 call. People don't think to call the water district.
Sure.
They see a fire hydrant hit, they go, oh, it's fire department. So we usually are notified by them. We actually did have one of our vendors' drivers call us at the same time we got the call from the fire department. But they did beat us there. Our guy got there shortly after the fire department shut it off.
Give us some idea of what our response time was once we were notified. Hopefully we were notified by the fire department as well, or is that not part of their?
The fire department notifies, their dispatch will call.
Okay, so they called somebody.
We basically were there almost at the same time, but they had a key on it and shut it off before we could get to it. But they have been asked to go slowly in the past. It's just, some of these young guys get a little excited.
Yeah, I just want to relay through my years in this business, I had a lot of problems with fire department personnel operating district facilities, and I sympathize with you. I think we used to hold a little 5-minute training session in each fire station to demonstrate what they need and what they should and shouldn't do, and you know, something like this causes a heck of a lot of damage that, you know, 5 minutes of training might have helped.
Yeah, we've been preaching it for years, but
yeah, I'm sure
Do we do that? Do we go to the firehouses and give them training?
I usually talk to the captains or the chiefs about it, and so that they incorporate it in their training. But yeah, we do different training with.
The adrenaline gets going, and they're trying to shut something off as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they only know one speed when they're responding.
Oh, yeah.
It's fast.
Sure, but after, I mean, there's always a captain in charge of the site. Whatever happens, there's a captain with them. And at least if they know, they could, I mean, we're gonna end up paying for this.
Yes.
And the problem is the fire department, the person that hit and run caused it. We may never know who that is. The fire department did what they need to do, shut it off for public safety, and we end up with a large bill. And it just doesn't make sense that we're not at least letting our captains know, of which one is always on scene, of, hey, this is the way it has to be done in order not to create other damage. This is a perfect time to go out and tell them all that after we had an incident where 6 restaurants are shut down now.
We actually have training with San Marcos Fire and several other North County fire agencies in a few weeks. So I find that'll be a perfect time. I can get on my soapbox.
Great.
And,
I
have a
know
little
you
chat.
do your best, but
It'll be with all of them. It won't just be the captains. There's going to be pretty much every firefighter in North County is going to be at one point or another training with us down at Middle Ark.
terrific, thank you, yeah. Director Snow?
Yeah, and I certainly can understand, the fire department's,
Sure.
immediate response and doing what they have to do for public safety reasons. But, after any situation like this, there is an opportunity for like a debrief or some collaboration between us and them, and that's a good time to maybe kind of refresh their memories on some of the processes, and hopefully that'll help. The other thing I'd add is that it would be nice to try to find out who would, the hit and run, who actually caused this problem in the first place. I understand it was a U-Haul truck, and
That's our understanding.
that's right there where that, what is it? It's San Marcos Boulevard and
Grand.
That's a pretty big intersection. I suspect that the city or the sheriff or both have some cameras on each of the streetlights. So perhaps if we file a report with the sheriffs, they can do a little investigative work for us and see if they can get a license plate. And
We actually have already, we have the incident report number from the sheriff's department, and we always follow up with them to see if they caught the individual.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the city has cameras on every intersection. Usually that intersection is 4 or 6 because of all the complexity of it. Whether they're working or not is another question, but they're there. They're expensive. All right. Thank you.
I had just one more item, if you'll indulge me.
Yes, sir.
So last week at the City of San Marcos City Council meeting, they approved the construction contract for their San Marcos Creek Specific Plan Capital Improvement Project. That basically is the project that's going to build the 2 bridges on Bent and Via Veracruz, as well as re-profile, widen, and raise Discovery and other assorted projects. In conjunction with that project, a lot of their construction will affect district facilities, so they'll be relocating some water lines and sewer lines. We also have our main interceptor that goes through there, so that's why I bring it to the board's attention, is that we're also in the process of advertising our interceptor sewer project, so that'll be coming before the board pretty soon for award of a construction contract. So there'll be 2 pretty big, significant construction projects happening along that area, both the city and the district's project. So, but we're coordinating well with the city, and we'll follow their rules on traffic control and notification and things like that. And we'll try to get in front of it on social media to let people know what our role is in relation to what the city's role is. So that's all I have.
Thank you. District Legal Counsel.
I just had one item that the Fair Political Practices Commission has adopted new regulations on materiality. So, under the Political Reform Act, if there's a decision before the board that would have a reasonably foreseeable material effect on a financial interest of one of the directors, you need to not act on that. They've adopted new standards regarding materiality as it affects if you have a business interest and that business is somehow either directly or indirectly involved in an item, and then they're going to be issuing new materiality standards relative to source of income. So I just encourage you to contemplate that.
Yes.
It hasn't come up much while I've been here, so go ahead.
Director Hernandez.
Well, I'll wait till the committee report, never mind. Thanks.
Been retracted?
What's that?
Retracted?
I'll wait.
Okay. Moving on, San County Water Authority, I don't assume there's anything there. Encina Wastewater Authority, Capital Improvement Committee.
The Capital Committee will meet later this month.
Oh, okay. Policy and Finance, same thing, later this month.
Okay.
Standing Committees.
Thanks. Okay. We had, the Engineering Committee was held yesterday, and we reviewed the solar project and the work parallel with San Marcos Boulevard. And we're going to get a full report here in another meeting or 2, so I won't steal anybody's thunder. However, in the conversation, there's a contract that ultimately will be put together, and based on our last discussion on contracts with the Water Authority, I would really ask our legal counsel to look at whatever we're going to sign with a fine-tooth, jaundiced eye, so we don't step into it, so.
So can you tell us anything about solar, or is that on our next agenda, or?
James will tell us the time frame for that.
So we had interviews, and we're basically down to one of two different respondents. We asked for a best and final offer, and now we're getting some clarifications. We're going to start negotiations with them. We plan on coming to the board probably first meeting in November with Terra Verde here giving a presentation with the final actuarial of the potential cost savings and the final contract. So there's a lot of work to be done because the respondents had a lot of markups on our power purchase agreement contract, and that's what Director Hernandez is alluding to. So we'll have to see where they are on it and then work with our legal counsel and try and get to it. The timing is of the essence because the 30% credit on solar runs out at the end of the year. So we're going to try and get this thing done in November so this way they have enough time to put that in. So.
And you brought up parallel San Marcos Boulevard. I didn't know what project you were talking about.
That's the Interceptor project that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, okay. Okay, terrific. No others? Okay. Director's report on travel, conference, and seminars, and we'll start with Mr. Hernandez.
Oh, my goodness. It's been a busy month.
Yes.
And it started with the WebTech conference in Chicago. I have been involved with the development side of my business with the Southern California Shopping Center conferences in Las Vegas, which are monstrous. Well, this is right a par. 40,000 participants, 100,000 square feet of display. I mean, some of the displays you couldn't fit in this room. I mean, there were trucks and there were digesters and all kinds of whirligigs going on. I did find a couple of septage manufacturers, had some nice discussion with them. We'll talk about that in the future, very positive in my opinion. The seminar breakout, the seminars were very good. They were, the big focus that I traveled with was stormwater. In Chicago, Midwest, a lot of the districts have joint stormwater and sewer lines connected, and they're treating that. Now, of course, they have places to put it and store it and send it out to the lakes and rivers. And the problem we have, of course, is we have no place to put it unless we find the groundwater opportunity coming up. But it was a very good seminar, well worth the going, and that was the WebTech. I also attended the Special District Conference, and one of the interesting things, and I've mentioned my conspiracy letters in the past, but I might as well throw them out because one of the guest speakers was Eric Qualman, and he identified you can forget your privacy. Privacy is out the window. We all have a digital footprint, he calls it a shadow, that is only bolstered by what we do. But there's already one there. Any 12-year-old can go online and hack, not hack actually, just spend a little time and get everybody's phone number, address, social security number. So he was going on a positive direction in as much as make it better. Make your shadow as nice as you can so that when somebody comes and tries to dish you, you can say, oh no, here, go online, you can see whatever I'm doing. So that was very good. Conference itself, it was as usual, very good, but this was a high point.
Thank you. Director Snelling.
report.
Director Delathar.
Yeah, the one thing I attended since the last board meeting was the CSDA conference as well. There was actually two keynote speakers. The one that Director Hernandez referred to, and the other was Mark Scherenbrock, and his was titled "Making Connections That Move People," and It was a really good talk, and it was really focused on building stronger, more unified teams. So I found that very interesting as well. I attended 3 other sessions. One was on leadership succession planning. It was very good. Another was focused on a guide to building better board and manager roles and relationships. And the third was meeting management tips for efficient and effective public meetings. They were all excellent sessions.
Great, thank you. I also attended CSDA, and I will say that Mark Sharonbridge, is that how I'm saying that? Yeah, Mark Sharon. His making connections that move people was very interesting. And we also got his book to read, which I've read half of already, because I was so enthralled by it. But and his book's called Nice Bike. And it's very interesting on how to connect with people very rapidly. And it was very motivating, so I really appreciate that. I only spent 2 days there because on the second day in that evening, we had the GPAC meeting. The first meeting without council, and all representatives were there, and James, of course, was there, and they're promoting that the alternates be there at every meeting. The major thing that we went over basically was the Brown Act. It's like, and a lot of us elected officials are looking at each other going, really, again? Over and over and over. But to a lot of people that were there, they don't know anything about it. So, and again, they explain it a little harsher than it really is. Like, don't talk to your neighbor. Big Brother's watching. It's like, it's not that bad. It's common sense, but it's just there. And the only thing that I put a key in was when they came to appointing the president and the vice president. And I spoke up very quickly and suggested and nominated Ramona Finella, who you all know probably from Carlsbad. She served 3 terms there, but more importantly, she served 2 terms as the chairperson of Sandag. And this group is a fairly large group of 13 people. A lot of academia, and she's also an attorney, a lot of academia, a lot of builders actually, and not as many of us normal folk, but they do have some. So I think it's going to be quite interesting as we move forward. They brought up some interesting questions. It's going to start in January earnestly. I think the 3rd Thursday of every month is what they're planning on to have the meetings, and maybe more in and when necessary. We did talk a lot about outreach, how we're going to get out to the public. And one thing that I brought up that I said is a good visual aid would be SMTV. Put together some spots for SMTV. However, knowing that the general public only usually shows up at things that affects their pocketbook. I don't know that other than the development community and business community, you're going to see many people attend these things, although they have high hopes. And we're also interpreting all the meetings in Spanish.
No.
And the city's paying for that. There's a Spanish interpreter, and she's speaking as it goes on to anyone that wants to have a Spanish interpreter. And there's one person that does listen to the Spanish interpreter, and then she spoke to us in Spanish, and they interpreted it back. So that's an interesting twist, something different. I thought it was very good, but they want to make sure we include everyone in it, as inclusionary as we can be. So that was very interesting, and that's the end of my reports, unless there's any questions about it. Okay, and with that, other business, director's comments. Anyone have comments on what they, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Future agenda item.
See if we could put together a policy committee meeting this month so that we could address a couple of things that we've been talking about, mainly plastics and staying in San Diego.
And what was the second one?
Staying in San
Overnight
Diego.
stays.
Overnight hotel stays.
Yeah, I'll give you a little preview.
I thought you wanted to move the district somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our manager, smart man that he is, found a Airbnb in Chicago and saved the district a little money. I didn't realize that was a possibility. So I looked at San Diego, and they have a very similar situation in San Diego a third of the price of the hotel and free parking. So I think we're going to have a very positive policy meeting.
Okay. Excellent. So we need a meeting on the policy. Any other meetings anyone calling for? No? Okay. With that, thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.